Hello everyone and welcome back to Space Engineers. Adam here. I am doing some work around the base as I've been doing for a little while now. Things are starting to kind of come together. We got a little bit of a staircase starting to go down here. This is going to be obviously the little industrial area where I keep the refineries and stuff, but I need to have better access than the janky access that I have right now, so I'm working on getting up to the surface. This will probably be like an entire stairwell that leads through the whole base. And just I edited there, I guess, but going back a little bit, but get this thing filled out a little bit, and running into complications because I didn't really plan ahead here. What ended up happening was there's not a lot of space in between that level and here, and there's pipes in the way that I have to redirect and all kinds of stuff. I'd never really planned these things out in advance for the most part. I kind of freeform it. I think most people do in Space Engineers, but it leads to some interesting things like this. And I'm kind of sick of digging, so I don't really want to set the stairs back too much more, but that's going to be something to just kind of keep, plugging away at as time allows. I'm still having to manually transfer cargo around because none of these have been added to the pipe network, and that's kind of annoying, but I shouldn't have to do that too much longer. We'll get some stuff going, but basically I have to clear out a bunch of stuff here. It's very janky trying to get around this base right now, and it's kind of annoying. Been dealing with that for a long time, the jankiness, and I just kind of want to have some sort of a way up, even if it's not perfect. We'll just call it good. Don't let the what's that thing? Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, or whatever. Good enough, whatever. I'll deal with the rest of this off screen. These things take forever to weld, and I don't want to just be here welding all day. I kind of want to discuss more the thinking behind things and stuff in this series. Otherwise, I would just live stream, I guess, and just show all the welding and whatnot. But I'm a very slow builder, so I end up changing things like 500 times as I'm working. So yeah, everything's just all kinds of crazy here. So anyway, alright, so we're on our way over to the old wreck site again in our good old reliable grinder ship, and the reason that I'm going over there right now is that my welding ship is still trapped over there on its own. The rover I drove back, but I want to get the welding ship because it would really make my life a lot easier for some of the building that I'm doing back there. And I figured the easiest way to get it back would be to bring this ship over, because I'm not walking like 35-40 kilometers or whatever it is, and I don't think trying to get it over with the rover would be a good idea, because it weighs about as much as this one, so 25,000 kilograms on the roof of that rover. It'd probably end up pretty bad, and there wouldn't be enough clearance to try to dock it to the rover, so gonna have to do it this way. And that's where things kind of take a turn for the interesting in a little bit. I think this is before I switched over to the developer build, but I've had this problem with other things before where you'll see what ends up happening. It's a weird glitch. I've had some weird thruster glitches too, where I have no thrust until I get out of the ship and then get back in. It's happened quite a few times. It's not consistent. It hasn't actually caused me to crash anything yet, but I kind of worry every time I undock something whether the thrusters are actually going to work, because as you'll see here, I'm all confused. I'm like, well, why aren't the thrusters turning on? Power's on. I turned on the thruster thing and we got nothing. So I'm willing to accept maybe it's something I'm doing wrong, but at this point I was willing to accept that because I do have little hot groups here. But as you see, I just turn off the battery, turn it back on, then trying all the combinations of everything set up with my little hotkeys, and the thrusters aren't even showing a hint of life. And like I said, this has not happened with any that's connected to a connector. I don't think it's only been when they've been landed that I've had this problem so far. So I'm making sure it's set manually to discharge. Main power is definitely on, and we still have nothing. And then I get out and look, thruster animation. What's that all about? And I haven't realized what's going on yet, so I'm still messing around with stuff. But yeah, we have thruster animation. So get out of the cockpit, get back in, seems to fix things. I might, like, I still can't take off here. Like, it showed the animation, but it's still not letting me take off, so that's interesting. And at this point, like, Fraps for some reason decided, if you saw a little flicker there, Fraps decided it wanted to split files into 4 gigabyte sections again, which I have never used that option because I'm not using like a Windows XP computer. So I don't know why that decided to do that. So there's I've ended up fixing it, but there's weird little hiccups in some of the next footage here where that happened. Because they don't join together exactly perfectly. Alright, so now that we have that weird glitch behind us, we get to experience a new weird glitch, which I've actually experienced before, I think in this very series when I was bringing the remnant of my very first base that I ended up relocating over. We get some weird lift issues where it's just kind of bizarre. Alright, so here we go. Lock her off. I think thrusters are on both. We're all good to go. And I didn't want to just press P because I figured that would probably cause us some issues. So manually come in here and... I thought I manually came in here and turned off the landing gear. I guess I done screwed it up. And undock. Okay. Now watch this. I'm not pressing spacebar. We're just floating magically upwards. This has happened to me before. And there are no down thrusters on these because they're atmospheric ships. And I'm like, what is going on? Is it an interaction with the other ship? It is some sort of weird interaction with the other ship, but I don't understand what it is. Because, like I said, this kind of thing happened when I was moving the remnant of that first base over, too. So it's not like this is unprecedented. And, like I said, these ships depend on gravity to pull them back down. There are no down thrusters, so... it's a little problematic, but we're just gonna roll with it. You know, it's not much you can do, but we'll just kind of use what thrusters do work, and the other one's working against me here as I try to go forward. It's silly good. It's like we're full of helium. We're just gently floating. So I want to turn the welding vehicle thrusters all off because I'm still at this point. I was thinking A, that would solve some of my issues that I'm having here, and B, I don't want it trying to counteract what I'm doing because we'll just stay in one place if they do that. It's identical ship, so its thrust is identical. It's not like we're going to be able to overpower it. So just power it down. We're still gaining altitude. It seems like it's a little bit slower maybe, but it's going to be a weird flight back. This ended up taking some creative thinking to solve the problem. The thruster sounds... this is still the old thruster sounds, isn't it? Maybe. It's hard to tell because I'm not in the cockpit. I'm just kind of watching the shenanigans unfold here. But if I just keep angling the nose down, I can keep our altitude under control. It's going to be a challenge to figure out how to land this thing. I'm kind of curious. I kind of wish I had done this. Just like, if I had just not done anything, would this have made it to space floating on its own? I don't know. It's very odd indeed. So yeah, just kind of fly like a helicopter, nose down, and everything kind of works. We got some sort of phantom lift going. I think this has been going on, this bug, for like a year. So, I don't know. Keen does weird things. Like, things start working and then they stop working and some things never get fixed. There's probably some very good reason. I'm not a computer programmer. It's easy for me to sit here in my armchair and be like, Keen, make a better game. But, you know, I'm sure there's good reasons that these things happen. It's a complicated thing. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's mods. It could be a mod's fault. I don't think there are really any mod parts on this ship, but who knows? Weird things happen. Not everything can be tested. And it ends up... I mean, that's kind of part of the charm of the game sometimes. It's a little frustrating when stuff just explodes or does something weird, but it's also kind of part of the charm is crazy shenanigans that happen in Space Engineers sometimes and trying to solve unanticipated problems, let's just say. If everything went the way it was supposed to. Be a lot more boring, I guess. Okay, so at this point, I am trying to figure out how, in the name of heck, I am going to manage this situation. Now, one thing I wanted to make sure would not happen is when I undock this, I don't want that ship to just fall like a stone uncontrollably, because it'd be a shame to go all the way over there and get it just to have it break and weird loading thing happens there, whatever. Alright, so we gotta somehow cancel out this altitude, which is gonna require some kind of scary piloting, because this ship's behaving a little unpredictably. I don't know. I was a little worried at some point that the phantom lift that we're having might just decide to stop. And what I'm hoping to do here is get low enough that we can get landing gear or something to grab onto something. So hopefully it won't like lift off with the whole base. Who knows how powerful this lifting force is. It'd probably be better to try to get to the ground or whatever, just in case. But I'm trying to do like a little bit of a spiral approach here, because I don't want to drift too far off. It seems like we kind of have the motion canceled at this point. We're only going in the direction that I'm pointing now. So some sort of equilibrium has been reached, it would seem. And like I said, just trying to be cautious here, because heaven knows I don't need to be rebuilding everything. My resources are still pretty tight at this point, and I'd rather not lose everything I invested in this stuff, because that would make me sad. Especially the grinding ship, because there's not a lot left over there to grind, but there's enough that I want the grinding ship still. And these little ships are useful too for, even though they're not mining ships, they're still useful for making runs out to my mining areas and carrying a lot more than I can carry on my person. Alright, so we are getting down to a reasonable-ish altitude. Now, the two things I was most concerned with were kind of polar opposites. Like I said, I was worried that I would undock from this ship and it would just fall like a stone, so I didn't want to be too high. And then I was also worried that one of the ships would just keep floating willy-nilly. And there's really no way to know. So, I'm going to get the landing gear ready to go here. I'm not going to have time to try to, like, press P and get it all lined up, and I don't really want to be pressing P anyway, because like I said, there's a connector active and I don't want some sort of incident occurring. This feels like, the whole time I was thinking, this feels like one of those times in Space Engineers where things are just going to spontaneously explode like a nuke. They like to do that from time to time. It's just like, everything seems fine. And look, we're not getting any lift because I'm angled slightly down. That's weird. And I really was like, not being able to go down is such a strange problem. It's like I wasn't sure I wanted to connect to the base. I would have preferred the ground, because like I said, I was a little worried that it might just take off with the whole base, even though it's a station block. Who knows? Strange things are abound here. It's kind of nice having all three of my vehicles in one place, even if they are stricken at the moment. Yeah, it's just like I just can't get into connector range. So then I was like, well, I come over here, just kind of tip the nose down onto this block. That'll probably work. And then I had a different idea, because I still was having a little bit of trouble. I would prefer to have like all of the landing gear touchdown, but then I realized I have this little beginning of a docking bay opening over here. Why don't we just fly underneath it, and that will keep the other ship from taking off if I do this properly. And it shouldn't fall, because I'll turn it on, get the engines all fired up. It should just hover there, and even if it tries to float away, it'll be stuck by those blocks. I think the blocks will be strong enough to stop it, and it's like, this seems like probably the most reasonable solution, frankly. And what was I doing at that point? I guess I was just checking to make sure everything was still on. So, yeah, I'm trying to remember what I was doing. I think I was still like, we'll try to get the landing gear, but then I was like, screw it, let's just do this. Fortune favors the bold. Yeah, and we're rising again, so. Seems like if I keep the nose pointed down, it does not rise as much. It started rising again a lot all of a sudden, too. I don't understand. Alright, so. Try to get our angles right for this parking maneuver here. Just try to get it to catch the roof of the other ship. The cockpit there. And that should not be able to go anywhere, even if it wants to, though. Alright, and it didn't fall out of the sky. We're disconnected. Trying to move a little bit quickly here. Doesn't look like anything terrible is going to happen. Awesome sauce. So, just put her down. I wanted to put it down on the ground just in case there are explosions, because they do just, like I said, spontaneously happen from time to time. So, that ship, safe. Awesome. And now we need to go try to figure out how we're going to deal with this. Now, I fortunately have this little construction gantry going on here, so I should be able to just drop down into the cockpit and land that bad boy, but I didn't leave very much room for me to actually land on there. It's very unfortunate. I probably could have tried to turn around and do like one of those falling, jumping into the cockpit kind of maneuvers, but I'd rather just land on the front end of the ship. Missed again. It's pretty unfortunate that I had to go through all this just for a simple thing. Makes me a little bit nervous about one of the plans I have for a ship in the future too, because I was actually thinking about having two ships that dock together as part of their design, but I'm not sure I really want to be flying around like that, because this would suck if I put a lot of resources into stuff and it just floats away on me like that. But the ship is fully responsive. It's like nothing was ever even wrong with it. Very strange. I wish I knew why that happens and what to do about it. But like I said, I'm pretty sure there's nothing you can do about it, because it's been like that, and I haven't had it float away on me in the developer builds, the nightly builds or whatever they are. They're not really nightly, they're weekly, but it still definitely has problems with the thrusters not wanting to activate, having to get out and get back in. Just, I don't understand. It's probably the landing gear's fault, really. Landing gear are usually the root. Like, if there's anything that you can blame most problems in Space Engineers on, it's either landing gears or rotors. The two of those things together are just, like, the worst. They're very useful, but they're also just, they add an element of chaos and danger into everything they touch. Alright, so at this point, the grinding ship, I'm just leaving it to charge because we're going to make another trip back over to the wreck site. I'm trying to make sure I get everything figured out and it's working right, and we need to go do some mining for uranium because it's still having energy problems. We don't have enough solar arrays, and there's a lot of refining and whatnot still going on. Fortunately, there is a uranium supply located conveniently right over here. So that's pretty much going to wrap things up for today. I think when we come back, we'll keep working on the base, get some more progress done on that. It's going to be a priority to get a mining ship constructed. I haven't mined on a planet before. I'm a little bit concerned about that because it's pretty easy in space to build a mine. It's a lot easier to build a lot of things in space. Flying's a lot easier in space, but I'm a little bit worried about doing the kind of mining ship I usually end up doing on a planet, but we'll have to figure that out because it's getting pretty tiring making these trips and manually doing all this mining. So anyway, I want to thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will catch you next time.